making potato salad, there always seems to be a little bit of war across the nation. A little bit. I know both sides of my family have it, and that is Hellman's is better. It's all silky and smooth. Oh really? Miracle Whip is better. It's all tangy and that zip that won't quit. Really full. Yes, really. So, see, across the nation, a lot of people wonder, do you use mayonnaise because it's a little bit more creamier? Or do you use Miracle Whip? It's got a little bit more of a zippy flavor to it. That can add a little bit more to your potato salad, egg salad, or just anything you would use mayonnaise for. And I actually want to bring them together because I say the best potato salad dressing uses both. You get the creaminess from the mayonnaise and a little bit of zip from the Miracle Whip, but the mayonnaise actually cuts a little bit of the Miracle Whip so it doesn't get old after your first few bites. So that's how we're going to start off our potato salad, is with a couple spoons of each. We're going to do about a 50-50 split of mayo and of Miracle Whip. Now, get that quick stir. Now, the next thing we're going to need to add is, a lot of people add onions or peppers, celery, that sort of thing. Personally, I'm not a fan of anything that has any chunky flavors or any chunky bits that you crunch into whenever you bite into it. So I actually, what I did is I pureed some pepper and onion together. So that way what it does is you get a lot of that flavor in your dressing without having to bite into it. A lot of people like the crunches, but I'm not a fan because I've tried to explain it to people. It's like you have a little bit of mushing and then out of nowhere there's just this crunch from the onion or the celery, and I just can't. It's like nails on a chalkboard for me. So I just go ahead and puree it, or you can grate it on in. You don't have to, that way you don't have to use any food processor or anything. Next we're going to add a touch of ground mustard. You could use prepared mustard, but I like, since we're using a little bit of the Miracle Whip, I find that prepared mustard adds just too much of a vinegary flavor after you get some of the zip from the Miracle Whip. And then finally I like to add a little bit of lemon pepper. Now this lemon pepper has some salt in it, so I'm not going to add any salt until I taste at the end because I don't want to overdo it on the salt. And that is it. It's a really simple dressing for your potato salad. So now we're going to leave that and we're going to add in potatoes that we've boiled already. I've cubed and boiled these earlier. That is approximately about 2 pounds of potatoes. For me, it was about 5 of smaller potatoes that were just in the bag that I got. And then we're going to add in our eggs. That's 3 hard-boiled eggs that we've diced up. And from there you just fold it in using a wooden spoon or a spatula until you get some coverage. The main thing is you want it to be nice and creamy but not overdressed, because you don't want it to become almost like a potato and mayonnaise paste if you overdress it. So there we go. We have about 6 tablespoons altogether of the mayo and Miracle Whip combined, and then the addition of the puree and the eggs and everything. That actually coats that perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to give this a quick taste. just to see if it needs any salt or anything. No, that is perfect. So actually, that's really quick, simple potato salad. Of course, you want to chill this because it's much better cold. It's very good next to a burger, steak, or anything. Or for the theme of this video, for a nice picnic. Everybody will eat this right up. Anyway, so that's potato salad. On to the deviled eggs. All right, moving on to deviled eggs. We have 6 hard-boiled eggs that I made earlier. Now, the hard-boiling eggs is one of those things that for the longest time I didn't really enjoy doing deviled eggs because hard-boiling eggs was always really a pain. You would sometimes get the just the shell would stick to the white so bad that you would just tear up the egg. And I would get that, like, 6 out of the 7 eggs I would try making would just tear up, until I found out that the main reason is that if you start eggs in cold water and then boil it, it adheres the outer membrane to the shell, and that makes it hard for you to get them off. So what I started to do is you drop the eggs into boiling water. Then at that point, you can turn off the water or turn it down to low, put a lid on, and let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes until it's hard boiled. And once you take it out, because you put it in hot water, that membrane cooks instantly. It doesn't have time to adhere to the shell. So you get perfectly round, hard-boiled eggs that don't tear any of the whites. And that's perfect for deviled eggs, because I hated making deviled eggs for people and using the chunky whites that come whenever a piece peels off with the shell. So for these eggs, we're going to go ahead and just cut them in half and put the yolks in the bowl. Now that you've gone ahead and put the yolks into the bowl, and we have the whites sitting off to the side as perfect serving vessel, we're actually going to go ahead and make the same exact dressing I just made for the potato salad. So that's going to be 1 spoonful of Miracle Whip, and the same thing for mayo. Obviously, since this is, we're not going to need as much dressing, we're quartering the recipe that we made earlier. And then we're going to add in just 1 touch of ground mustard and a little bit of the lemon pepper. Again, this has salt in it, so I'm not going to add salt unless once I taste it at the end if it needs it. Now that we have this together, we can go ahead and use a whisk to really break up the yolks and mix in that dressing. Alright, so when you use the whisk and you kind of whisk it around a little bit more violently like that, it mashes up the egg and while mixing it in. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm actually going to get a clean spoon since that one has some of the dressing on it. Or a fork, either one. Almost forgot. A dash of the onion and pepper mixture that I needed. We'll go ahead and get that mixed in as well. Okay. I knew I'd miss some because there was actually, I could tell that there wasn't an onion flavor. That actually makes it a lot better. So now we're going to go ahead with the applying the yolk mixture back into the whites. The normal trick for applying it is to pipe it using a sandwich baggie. So all that really means is that we're going to take a sandwich baggie and fill it with the egg mixture that we just had. So grab a clean spoon, kind of get it ready to put in the bag. All right, as you can see, that is not a very clean process, but it's quick, and you'll see why this is so effective here in a second. All right, now that I've washed up my hands a little bit, we can go ahead and get these piped into the whites. We want to take a towel to apply or to clean off the strip here, the locking strip, and we'll go ahead and finish that off. You want to push it all down into one of the corners, and where that corner is, you just want to take a knife or a pair of scissors and snip that off. Check and see, have you made it big enough? Yep. Bring back over the whites and just go to town. And if you're like me, you likely start off a little bit too ambitious with the first few eggs. So your last one here, you might not have enough for it, but I'm sure you probably have a little bit left in that bowl. So we can go ahead and do the other way to do it, of just put on a spoon, and this would be easier with another spoon, but a knife will do. And now you've got a dozen beautiful deviled eggs. Now, when it comes to garnish, that is something that you could do with either paprika as normal, or maybe a dash of cayenne pepper if you're adventurous. Or what I like to do sometimes is dice up pickled jalapeno peppers. I think that's really good. I don't like to add the jalapeno peppers into the egg mixture, or if you're using any sort of pickle as a topper, because that brine usually just takes over the flavor of everything, and all you taste is that pickle whenever you're eating it. Versus when you use it as a garnish, the brine is only for the pickle that you have as the garnish. Anyway, let me give one of these guys a try. Man, I have to tell you, deviled eggs are probably one of my favorite picnic foods. Something I look forward to so much whenever we have a nice plate of deviled eggs. Always so good. So anyway, this is a very quick and simple recipe for deviled eggs. Maybe you're making it for your picnic, or you could just be making it for a nice Sunday afternoon. Either way, they're going to be delicious. Onwards to the next recipe. Our next dish is going to be kielbasa and sauerkraut. This might sound kind of weird to people that live in areas where sauerkraut or kielbasa might not be popular, but in Pittsburgh, and especially in the area where I was living in, it was almost necessary at any major sporting event, picnic you went to. Somebody always made a nice big platter of kielbasa and kraut. Now, kielbasa, which I have cut up into little 1.5-inch chunks here, is a Polish sausage. Usually has heavy garlic flavorings added to it. If you don't have kielbasa in your area, just getting the smoked sausage from any of the major national brands, they'll do okay, just it's not going to be as tasty. And then finally we have the other major ingredient, which is sauerkraut. Sauerkraut being a fermented cabbage. Generally it's just cabbage packed with salt, and the salt pulls out the moisture from the cabbage. It then creates a brine, which then ferments a bit, and you're left with a very interesting flavor because it's pickled, but it doesn't taste super pickly. It's sour, but it doesn't have vinegar in it, at least in a homemade one. It doesn't have vinegar in it, so it's not sour in the normal sense of that either. Very interesting flavor. The texture is, it has a little bit of a crunch, but not too much to it. If you're somebody who lives near German, Polish, Jewish, any type of that community, you likely have some kraut readily available. So basically this is a very simple recipe. We're going to start off by adding the sauerkraut to our pot. We're going to add a couple handfuls of the kraut, And then we want to add in plenty of the juice. And there. And then we want to take our kielbasa and just nestle it in between all the sauerkraut. And then we'll turn on our cooktop. Now, I'm just going to set it down to, my induction cooker, I'll just set it down to 300. What we really want is to bring it up to a boil, then back it down to a simmer. Obviously, if you're on a gas or electric cooktop, you would set the high, bring it up, then bring it back down at medium-low. So then what we'll do is after it is brought up to the boil, we're going to clamp the lid on and we're just going to let it simmer. And what's going to happen is the kielbasa is going to cook down. It's going to soak in some of the sauerkraut juices, and what's going to happen then too is the kielbasa is also going to render some of its fat and its juices, and it's going to flavor the sauerkraut. It's going to be a very good symbiotic experience going on, and it's going to be a very delicious dish you can then easily put into a large Tupperware container and take to the picnic. So we're just going to let this simmer for a little bit. Alright, so it's been 25 minutes that we've let it simmer, and whenever we look in here we can see a lot of that juice is reduced down. There's still some down in there, and we can see that the sausage is cooked through, some have split, some are still whole, and really this is perfectly done now. Now you can serve this if you're just making this as a meal, scoop it up, serve it over mashed potatoes, perfect. Put it on, if you do like a little longer lengths, you can put it in a hot dog bun with the sauerkraut in there. That's delicious. Split these down the middle, get some hamburger buns. That's pretty good as well. There's a lot of different ways you can eat this. Of course, in a situation of going to a picnic, you would really just put these in a aluminum foil pan, cover, and go, and people come along and take a nice piece of sausage, a little sauerkraut, and boom, it's all good. So anyway, this is the third item in the picnic series. Now we're going to go on to the last one, and you might be a little surprised by what I'm making. The final item that we're going to be making today is actually something that's sort of weird, if you think about it in a picnic sense. Actually, it was funny, I didn't even think about it being weird until I was telling my wife that, I was really in the mood for this dish because it reminded me of picnics and it's summertime, and and then she just looked at me like I was crazy. She was like, what are you talking about? That's not picnic food. And I was like, isn't it? So then I texted my family to see, was it just a family thing? And I found out it's really just a Pittsburgh thing. And I did look it up to make sure that this dish isn't anywhere else, and all I found was references to it being in Pittsburgh. And that is rigatoni. There's always a big pan of rigatoni that was accompanying the fried chicken, the kielbasa and sauerkraut, the potato salad, macaroni salad, the corn, everything. And to me, it was just rather normal. So so in my research, I found that it seemed to be only a bit of a Pittsburgh thing. So this is actually where I might toss this question out to you guys that are watching. Are you from an area that's not Pittsburgh, where you may have had rigatoni as a picnic item? Everything I've seen shows it only as a Pittsburgh thing, but I'd love to know, is this something that is actually more widespread than that? So anyway, I'm going to make my rigatoni recipe. Now this sauce is just the basic tomato sauce that I make for spaghetti, for everything. So this is actually a good multi-purpose sauce that you can use. It's going to be start with some beef. So what we'll do is we'll start up the cooktop, and we want it to be where it'll season, or where we're going to brown the beef. Now we're going to add some canola oil, We don't need to go adding any olive oil or anything to that because, oh, it's giving me an error. There we go. Doesn't like when I lift up the pan. If you go trying to use olive oil, it's not meant for that high heat, unless if you get just a very standard cheap version of olive oil. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and use canola oil. I like it because it doesn't leave any real smell. I feel like peanut oil and vegetable oil just leaves a bit of a stink in the kitchen that makes it smell greasy. Canola oil, it doesn't unless if you're deep frying with it. So now, we're actually going to go ahead and brown this beef. This is 1 pound of ground beef, just generic ground beef. And this will take about a few minutes or so. So the meat is almost done browning. And this is actually a good point to talk about what a lot of people want to do here, and that's drain the fat. And if you're making spaghetti or rigatoni or any kind of meat sauce for just your family, you're going to eat it right away, I would totally recommend draining the fat. Eating the rigatoni right after, if you leave it full fat, it can cause it to be greasy. But if you're going to make it for a picnic, where what's going to happen is you're going to make it, it's going to sit at room temp for at least an hour while everybody's getting there and you're waiting, everybody's getting together, and finally you get to go ahead, everybody's starting. It's been an hour 45 minutes to say that from the time that you warmed it up before you cook it. Now what's going to happen is the sauce is going to become gluey from the starch if you drain all the fat. Because the starch will just go in there and thicken that tomato sauce that you made, because you make plenty of sauce for it whenever it's hot, but as it cools, the starch swells and continues to make it kind of gluey. The way to combat that is by leaving the fat in your sauce, because the fat will be moist at room temperature. And that's going to let you go ahead and whenever people go to scoop it and eat it, it's going to feel moist. They're not going to get that kind of starchy, gluey texture you get if you eat, old spaghetti that's been sitting around a bit. So now what we're going to do is we are going to leave all fat in there, since we're making this like we would for a picnic. And now that it's all fully browned, I'm going to go ahead and there's a couple stages we need to think about flavoring the meat and flavoring the sauce. So this is the flavoring the meat portion. First off, we're going to add our garlic and shallots, because this is going to help the meat take on a little bit of that flavor from the aromatics. Also, you want to let the garlic and shallot cook through just a little bit. That's about a half tablespoon each of minced garlic and shallot. Then I like to add a little bit of steak seasoning. Now you can just add salt and pepper here, but I'm a fan of this. It's a steak seasoning that has salt and pepper and then a few other spices, the garlic, onion powder, all that sort of thing. I find that it adds just a nice background flavor for the beef. Oh man, you can smell the shallots and garlic. It's starting to really smell good. Now finally, whenever you get this and all the liquid has started to evaporate and you're left with just the beef and fat, you're going to give it a couple shots of Worcestershire. Now don't add the Worcestershire to the sauce. If you skip it, just leave it. You don't want the sauce to take on the flavor of the Worcestershire, else it's going to get a kind of a funky, acidic flavor on top of it. You want the Worcestershire to cook into the beef. So now we're done with the flavoring the beef portion. And we're going to go ahead and add 1 can of generic tomato sauce. Now, if you're making it for your family, if you find a can of San Marzano whole tomatoes, it does increase the flavor a good bit if you go ahead and take those and just crush them with your hands and add them in here, but it's also a little bit more expensive, so I'm not going to go and use it all. They use the good stuff on a picnic. Now we're going to go ahead and let this cook, and you want to start stirring, especially since we let the beef fat in there. We want to mix the fat into the tomato sauce. So we're going to go ahead and stir around to try and get that fat worked in as it comes up to temperature and starts simmering. So now we're seeing it start to come together a little bit better. All right. Now then, nope, got a little bit overzealous there on one side. All right. Now we have the beef fats. It's mixed in. We're going to let this get to a simmer, which it's already at. Nope. Let's back it down a little bit. Don't want it that simmering that violently. It is true. We want to reduce the heat down to a medium-low. I left it up on high. So now we're into the flavoring the sauce portion. And that is going to be about a cup altogether. And that's going to be about half a cup of chopped fresh basil and chopped fresh oregano. That'll be a half cup of each into the sauce. And we'll work that in. And then since we have it, you don't need to do this. The shallots and garlic are doing plenty. But we do have that mixture of pureed onion and green pepper from earlier that I'm going to go ahead and add just a scoop. Now we want to let this come up to a simmer because we want to get the herbs in first so they have some time to cook down and really start releasing their oils and perfuming the sauce. We'll let that return to a simmer. I'll go ahead and cover that up for now to avoid any splatters. All right, so now let's return to a simmer. We're going to add our last ingredient to the sauce, which is going to be some red wine. If I can get the cork out of it. There we go. Or I thought I had. Let me grab a towel. Got to stop putting it back in so hard. There we go. We're going to add about a quarter cup of red wine. Stir that in. Now, all we have to do is let this sit and simmer for about 10 minutes. All right, so I've let this simmer and for about 15-20 minutes or so, and it cooked down pretty nice. I did give it a taste and it could use a little bit of salt. I'm not going to add any more of the steak seasoning, just give this a few grinds of salt. And we're ready for the rigatoni, which I boiled about a pound of it a little bit earlier. Now the main thing about whenever you're making pasta to go, or like we're going to do a sort of a baked version of this as well, is that you don't want to cook it all the way to being done. You don't even want it to be at al dente. You want it to be just barely into the al dente stage. You want it to be where the pasta actually sticks to the back of your teeth a little bit. Not still hard that you have to chew it, but that it doesn't, it requires still a little bit of force to chew. So you can see it's soft, but if you were to bite into it, it'd stick to your back of your teeth a little bit. Now this is because whether you're just gonna stick this in and take it somewhere, or you're gonna bake it a little bit, it's going to soak in some of that sauce and finish cooking the rest of the way. If you were to cook it all the way to the perfect al dente, it's going to be mushy whenever people go to eat it later. So now that we have the rigatoni nice and coated, we could easily serve it like this, or you could stick it in a pan and whisk it away to your picnic. Or you could do this now. This is something that you can do in just a normal aluminum pan, but since I'm just going to be making it for here, I'm going to use my one of my porcelain baking dishes. We're going to turn off the cooktop, and we're going to smooth down the rigatoni. Now this last step is optional, but we're going to add some mozzarella. I'm just using some shredded bag mozzarella. If you're making this for your family, you'll want to use a nice fresh mozzarella that you would slice and put the slices over on top, but that kind of quality is really not going to be apparent if you're just taking it to a picnic. It's going to be on a plate next to a hamburger, next to potato salad, next to a piece of corn, next to some green beans, whatever people brought. So we have a healthy topping though of just some plain shredded mozzarella cheese. And I have a preheated oven at 400 degrees, and we're going to go ahead and bake this for about 10 minutes to let the cheese melt and get a little burn on top, or a little brown, not burn. Don't burn it. Get a little brown on top, and then we'll pull it out, and that'll finish off our picnic feast. So there we have it, a wonderful meal prepared of some of my favorite picnic classics. We have deviled eggs, potato salad, kielbasa and sauerkraut, and of course rigatoni. So I want to thank you for joining me today on Big K's Kitchen. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing some of these recipes and you'd like to try some of them on your own. Please, I'll mention in the description below all my social media channels. Let me know either in the comments of this video or on social media, what are your favorite picnic foods? Do you have any traditions of where you like to go or what you do? Maybe a specific group of people that you always enjoy go on a picnic, or you have some great childhood memories of going and playing, or like me, eating the food. Let me know all these wonderful memories you might have about picnics, or about making the food with your family for the picnics, or even just a nice summertime family gathering. It doesn't necessarily need to be a picnic. Hit me up on social media or in the comments below and let me know. So I want to thank you again for watching Big K's Kitchen, and I'll catch you next time.